Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Whatcha Gonna Queue, the greatest thing to happen to the internet since pornography, with half the guilt involved. For those of you who may be new to the show, Whatcha Gonna Queue is a weekly video series in which we highlight some of the best titles that Netflix has to offer, with recommendations broken down into 3 categories. Instant Karma, where we recommend some of the best instant titles to watch before they expire. What the F is This, where we highlight some of the obscure or overlooked titles buried in the annals of Netflix. And For Your Consideration, where the recommended titles tie into a timely, predetermined cinematic theme. I am one of your co-hosts for the show, Jim Rohner.
And I'm your other co-host, Alex Rabinowitz.
Yes, and Alex, I'm still reeling a little bit from my defeat at the Oscar poll at the hands of you.
Good.
So I'm trying to take people's advice in which they say that laughter is the best medicine. So I think I found the absolute best medicine that's out there with my recommendation in section 1. Arrested Development follows the indescribably dysfunctional Bluth family, who are trying their hardest not to kill each other while keeping the family business afloat in the wake of the imprisonment of their family patriarch. Featuring a veritable who's who of hilarity, including Jason Bateman, David Cross, and Will Arnett, the short-lived Fox comedy was almost universally loved and acclaimed as sheer brilliance, before studio mishandling led to cancellation after only 3 seasons.
I'm right in the middle of something. Get rid of the C word.
I'll leave when I'm good and ready.
Now, if viewers out there haven't heard of Arrested Development, you're either Amish or you died on the operating table, because everybody, I'm sure, has either heard of the greatness of Arrested Development or the tragedy that came about on the hands of the poor handling of it by Fox.
Yeah, and that poor handling cannot be overstated. It really was just horribly mistreated, and in retrospect, it was such a great show, and it had such critical acclaim, and it deserves every ounce of it.
It's amazing that in such a short time, in just 3 seasons, how much the show was able to accomplish.
Yeah.
Because not only is it just gut-bustingly funny upon first watching, but it holds up just as well on repeat viewings, because it was one of the best written shows, not just comedies, but one of the best written shows on TV. Creator Mitchell Hurwitz and just the team of writers that they had are just so intelligent, because there's so many gags about this that just hold up on repeat viewings, because you have jokes that are just so multi-layered.
Where the are my hard-boiled eggs?
And the entire show just shows such coherency and continuity that it's kind of amazing. It's just brilliant writing.
Yeah, it kind of broke the mold for TV comedies and for these actors and writers, because it seems like nothing they've done since has been able to live up to the legacy of Arrested Development.
Yeah, everyone involved with this certainly set the bar really high for themselves. Yeah. So when you see, the actors or the creators involved in just mediocrity like The Switch or Running Wild or Retired at 35,
yeah,
you just think like, what are you guys doing? You're capable of so much more than this. But then you also kind of got to step back and realize that that's just a sad statement about TV nowadays and what's popular and what people want to see. And it's really kind of sad.
We could recommend this show at any time. It's that great. You can get on disc and watch the whole thing. It's phenomenal. But right now it's on Instant and it's expiring.
Yeah. All 3 seasons are available on Instant right now, but all 3 seasons will also be expiring on April 1st, April Fool's Day, and that's not a joke.
If laughter is the best medicine, Jim, I've got another prescription for you in section 2. In 2005, comedians Paul Provenza and Penn Jillette set out to make the dirtiest movie of all time. And surprise, it's a documentary. The Aristocrats tells the inside story of the one joke that all comedians tell to each other behind closed doors. The film features interviews and tellings from 100 of the biggest comedians of all time, with everyone from George Carlin to Bob Saget to Sarah Silverman.
These are my 2 children. They pass gas to the tune of What a Wonderful World in unison.
Do not confuse the Aristocrats with 1970 animated Disney film The Aristocats. That would be a grave mistake, and I would hate for any families out there who want to see a happy-go-lucky Disney musical about some singing cats, pick up The Aristocrats and show that to their children, because The Aristocrats is dirty, dirty, dirty.
But of course, this all comes from the fact that the Aristocrats is obviously this this joke that comedians have been known and passing down to each other from generations.
Yeah, the concept of the documentary is that it's about this old joke that has been passed down since vaudeville from comedians generations and generations. And basically, it's the joke that they tell to each other in the green room of the club. The way it works is that it has the same beginning and same end every time you tell it, but the middle is completely customizable, so every comedian gets to make up and improvise their own way of telling the Aristocrats joke.
The Aristocrats.
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 The end, in comedic terms, that's the punchline, Alex.
Oh, yeah, the punchline.
But for people who may not necessarily be into a documentary of just an hour and a half of talking heads, what is really interesting about it is that kind of what you hinted at, it's kind of a look into these comedians' inner circle, because professional comedians, George Carlin, Greg Giraldo, you know, God bless their souls, Bob Saget, Sarah Silverman, they're cut from a different breed than we are. So it's really kind of cool that this kind of gets inside just their world.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's got this great blend of straight-up humor. It's a very, very funny movie because of what they're saying, but it also gets into the psyche of the comedian, which not a lot of people see. And in that way, the way that the joke, in each individual's telling of the joke, gives a little bit of who they are, it becomes something else completely, and that's where it gets to sit amongst the great documentaries that have been made in the past decade and even before that.
Right. Well, I think I may have overdosed a little bit on comedy in these first two sections, Alex, so let's mellow it out a little bit for our recommendations in section 3. Now that award season is finally over, we can get back to focusing on what's really important, being lazy. And what better way to get reacquainted with our apathetic side than kicking back and watching some television? The only problem is a lot of shows of past, present, maybe future, are either terrible or just a bit too serial and hard to just jump right into if you haven't been watching from the beginning. So, in honor of that, we're going to dedicate our recommendations and for your consideration to some truly great standalone TV episodes from some truly great TV series. Created by Chris Carter, The X-Files follows the exploits of Fox, Spooky Mulder, and Dana Scully, played by David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, who are two FBI agents assigned to investigate strange and unexplained cases, dubbed X-Files. Written by Vince Gilligan, the episode called Bad Blood plays out as a Rashomon-esque debriefing of a case in which the agents' recollections of an investigation into vampire activities in a small Texas town are markedly different from each other.
Yeah, that's probably a satanic cultist. Come on, Scully.
I loved The X-Files as a kid. I remember watching the pilot when it first came on with my entire family. I love it now. And what I love about it is that, you know, Twin Peaks that came before it, blended this one drama of this cop procedural, very serious kind of drama, with these strange kind of paranormal themes that weren't really accepted by mainstream audiences, but just they blended together in such a way that made it a great, really respectable TV series.
And what I love about that show is its blending of the episodic and the serial nature.
When everybody thinks of The X-Files, they all think of aliens and government conspiracy, which was certainly kind of the central theme that tied all the 9 seasons together. But the show started out as just a monster of the week type of show, where every single week there was just an unconnected case of something strange that was going on, with no continuity, no tie-ins, where you could just kind of plop down, sit and watch it, and just be able to pick up immediately what was going on.
Yeah. So why this episode? Why Bad Blood?
Bad Blood is one of the best episodes in the entire series because written by Vince Gilligan, who went on to create truly exceptional Breaking Bad. It harkens back to Rashomon, as I said, in that sense of Mulder and Scully have two different stories of the same events, and just they're vastly different. Mulder's is obviously focuses a lot more on paranormal stuff and, you know, insults a lot of the local townsfolk as these country bumpkin types. And Scully's is very much cold and logical, and nothing was going on, everything was business as usual. And she thinks that the local townsfolk were charming and somewhat attractive. So it's really just great because it's funny and it's serious, and you can tell that Vince Gilligan really had a passion for the material because he's not poking fun at them. He's really kind of homaging a lot of things. And because he just really knows the characters so well that you could sit down and you could just pick up, without having watched any episodes before, you know exactly who these characters are and what they've done.
Yeah, and it's got a cameo in it, if I am not mistaken.
Yes, Mr. Luke Wilson, for those who might be interested in watching the show for eye candy.
So,
if you consider Luke Wilson eye candy.
That's a thing, I guess. But you know, Jim, I love science with my fiction as well.
Oh.
That's why I'm recommending an episode from Lost. Directed by Jack Bender, the 5th episode of Season 4 is highly regarded as one of the series' best. Written by show co-creators and runners Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, The Constant is both a deviation from and major contribution to the greater mythology of one of TV's most seminal science fiction adventures.
My friend is historian. I'm not your friend. I don't know you. I don't know you.
Lost is a deeply serialized show. There's really no way around that. Trying to pick up any random episode and figure out what's going on is only going to lead to frustration. Luckily, The Constant kind of breaks the mold and is about as close as standalone as this series gets.
I am one of those rare breeds of human, the kind that has never once watched an episode of Lost. So it's great that I can sit in on this conversation and hear you talk about Lost without worrying about hearing spoilers or having to, run out of the room screaming.
Right, it's not about the end of the series. It doesn't really, it gives away a little bit because it comes right in the middle of the show, but you can watch it and enjoy it regardless. A little bit of background information. The episode follows Desmond Hume, as played by Henry Ian Cusick, who up until this point was a supporting character. He's been going through some mental trauma, some weird phenomena in his brain because of the mystical powers of the island. He takes a helicopter ride from the island to a freighter boat not far offshore, and things in his mind begin to unravel.
Okay. Now, aside from the fact that people can just sit down and watch this without really having to know too much about the series, why is The Constant a standalone episode? Why are you recommending this? Why does this one stand out?
Because this episode is the epitome of what Lost does best in a contained, easy-to-follow episode. It's got those influences from sci-fi tropes, the great science fiction and literature of the past. In this case, Slaughterhouse-5. Without Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-5, there would be no The Constant episode. It's very reliant on that. But it also has these rich character moments and big emotional payoffs. So if you're interested in drama and getting involved with characters, there's something for you. And if you love sci-fi, maybe your favorite movie last year was Inception, you're going to love this episode as well. And besides that, it's got, action, suspense, mystery, all of the staples of Lost in a neat 45-minute package.
Well, it sounds great because I love all those things. And you know what else I love?
What?
Whatcha Gonna Queue? Which is a bit sad because not only is this the end of this show, but we're going to go on a little hiatus for a little bit. We're not going to have a show next week because our very own Alex Rabinowitz is going on vacation. Alex, why don't you tell the viewers where you'll be?
Well, because I love our viewers so much, I'm taking an entire week off to watch everything on Netflix. The entire library, because I'm that devoted to our fans.
Yeah, isn't that sweet? And if you want to repay Alex's devotion with devotion of your own, on top of watching the show, you can also visit all of our social media outlets. We always have a Facebook page where you can visit and post a picture of your queue if you need some queue advice. You can go to our Twitter account where you can follow what we're doing every minute of every day. You can go to our blog to keep up on the latest in instant, streaming, and anything going on with Netflix. And if you want, you can also check us out on iTunes, which you should. So remember, guys, until next time, they're called illusions, Michael. Tricks are what whores do for money and cocaine.